Hi everyone. So yeah, this is odd, isn't it? I mean, I'm sure you're kind of used to it by now. The idea of it being a kind of a workshop where I'm speaking to people. I have no idea if anyone's paying attention. I have no idea if anyone's kind of listening or participating. But I'm going to sort of keep doing it like this. And if you've got something that you'd like to say or something that you'd like to kind of contribute, then if you put it in the chat, I mean, I've got the chat open. I think Jill's kind of got the chat open. So both are going to sort of like both of us are going to sort of keep an eye on it. And at some point, I will sort of be asking for contributions as well. So yeah, get ready to sort of get typing. But otherwise, let's crack on with learning a song and sort of talking a little bit about this particular piece. Um, so, if any of you were here last night, when I say here, I mean online, then you'll have heard me sing L'Autre jost'una sebissa, which is a pastorelle from the 12th century. And that's the song that we're going to learn today. And you've all probably done it, or you might know about it, or but we just want to concentrate more on the performance, about how to sort of get across a song in a language which is totally alien to literally everybody in the world today and everybody who's going to be listening to you. Um, and like sort of, I mean, you've done all these on Zoom already, so please keep yourselves muted until I sort of ask if you or somebody would like to unmute. And so we will be singing without being able to hear anyone else. I did consider right at the end maybe everybody unmuting who wants to and singing along, which we might still do, which could be sort of fun. I've also got an idea for warm up where we might be able to sort of unmute and sing together, which we'll might have a go at. But first of all, let's just do a little kind of vocal warm up. I don't know if any of you have sung yet today, but let's just do a little bit of vocal and slight physical warm up to get ourselves ready. If you've done any of these things with me before, then you will recognize some of the exercises because they're pretty similar. But yeah, let's get going. So ideally, you'll be standing up. So if you would like to, then stand up and get yourselves in. You know, don't feel as though you need to be on Zoom for this. Just sort of stand up somewhere in the room to make sure you can still hear. Um, and we are going to start off with silent laughter. So this is an exercise which is a way of getting rid of constriction in your throat. And what you do is you do the H sound, the kind of sound, and after a second or so, you release it and you laugh silently. So when you're doing the H, you're constricting your vocal folds. As soon as you release it and laughing, you're releasing them, and that's a way of sort of trying to sort of make sure that there's no constriction and no sort of tension around your vocal folds. So in your own time, let's do this a few times. Just silent an H and then some silent laughter. So I will demonstrate and do it as and when you want. I'll do it a few times. So it goes like this. That wasn't the sound cutting out, by the way. It's supposed to be silent. And as you breathe, you can breathe in and out as many times as you like when you're silently laughing. So do it a few more times. And if you'd like to, if you want to sort of feel, if you put your fingers either side of your throat very gently, you should be able to feel a slight release in your vocal folds as you're. So I did do this with two hands. I'm only doing it with one hand because I'm holding a microphone with the other one. But if you sort of like that, um, you should be able to. You should be able to sort of feel your throat release. So go. Just feel a bit of width there in the throat. So that's probably enough of that. Um, Next thing to do is some sirening, which is just going up and down your register, up and down your range in on an NG sound, so an sound. just to sort of open up your range as much as possible to try and sort of dust up any cobwebs at either end of your range and to sort of try and make sure that there's a consistent sound going through. So ideally, everyone's got a break in their voice. When it comes to breaking your voice, try and make it as smooth as possible. Um, Gents and ladies, of course. Gents, when you get to your break for your falsetto, just keep going. Just power on through. Go up as high as you can in your falsetto and down again. Ladies, likewise, when you're going from chest to head voice, just try and sort of power on through. Try and make it as sort of easy a link as possible. So this is what I would like you to do. It goes sing. Breathe as when you want to. Try and have as much kind of width as possible. So remember, like the feeling that you had once you'd released the sort of H sound around your throat. Try and maintain that sort of width around your throat so there's as little constriction as possible. So it feels as wide as possible. There's as much space there as possible for your voice, for the sound to resonate. And that will sort of give it a richer, potentially sort of more dynamic sound. So keep going a couple more times with the siren. So sing. Cool, that's enough of that, I think. Now, let's try and kind of just generally release ourselves, not just around our voice, but around our bodies. And this is, some of you will, again, will know this from the workshops in the previous years. It's where you get a tennis ball or any other sort of ball. A virtual one is probably better than a physical one. Wendy, I can see you there. So you don't really want to sort of destroy anything. But if you get a virtual ball of some sort into your hand, pick your stronger hand, and you're going to chuck it at the wall, all the while saying, yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'm just going to sort of demonstrate. I'll move back a bit for this. You just go, yeah, yeah, yeah. And it kind of, this is all getting a little bit of twang into your voice, a little bit of kind of colour into your voice. It's also just generally releasing you a bit, releasing your upper body, trying to get as much kind of space and lack of tension in your upper body. So let's do this sort of 3 or 4 times. I'm going to put the microphone down in your own time. Chuck a virtual tennis ball or other sports balls are available at a wall, shouting, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah! Yeah, yeah, yeah! Yeah, yeah, yeah! And give yourselves a general shake about there as well, just sort of twist yourselves around, and then get your virtual ball into your non-natural hand. We'll chuck it 3 times at the wall with our non-natural hand and try not to look too malcoordinated when we do it. Yeah, yeah, yeah! Yeah, yeah, yeah! Yeah, yeah, yeah! And sort of let your arms go a little bit. There you are. So hopefully we're just a little bit less tense. Sorry, not the microphone. Just hopefully we're a little bit less tense than we were a few minutes ago. Now let's try and warm up the face and the tongue and the sort of jaw and area. So let's just do a few kind of big face, little face, where you get your face as wide as possible so everyone can see down your throat, and then crunch up into as close a thing as possible. So you're just going. So yeah, so your mouth is as wide as possible, and you scrunch yourself like there. So we're just sort of getting the jaw in particular a little bit looser. And now for the tongue, and this is the tongue boot camp, which I do every year, which is will exhaust you, and your tongue will absolutely kill for a few seconds afterwards. It's supposed to happen. Don't be worried about that. And what we're going to do is we're going to put your tongue inside of your mouth, or the front of your teeth, go round in circles 6 times clockwise, 6 times anti-clockwise, 5 times clockwise, etc., until you do it once either side, and you should feel exquisite agony at the end of it. So in your own time. And when you're done, let the tongue hang out like that. And not that I want to cause you pain, but hopefully you were feeling as much pain as I was just then. Um, Good. So that sort of loosens the tongue up as well. Normally you might want to do that maybe 2 or 3 more times. And if you're feeling extremely um, confident, you can do it maybe up to 10, 9, etc. Um, look, we haven't got long, so let's move on. Let's do a little bit of actual singing and vocalizing. Sorry, pardon me. Let's do a little bit though that's going to get our lips warmed up. So a couple of tongue twisters up a scale. So we'll start off with popper catapetal copper plated kettle. So just say that a couple of times, get that ready. Popper catapetal copper plated kettle. Popper catapetal copper plated kettle. Popper catapetal copper plated kettle. So get those plosives going. I'm just going to do it up an octave. So with popper catapetal, copper plated kettle, popper catapetal, etc. So starting here and popper catapetal, copper plated kettle, popper catapetal, copper plated kettle, popper catapetal, copper plated kettle, popper catapetal, copper plated kettle. Excellent. Try and get the words right like I didn't. We'll do it again. Cop, pop, sorry, pop, and popper catapetal, copper plated kettle, popper catapetal, copper plated kettle, popper catapetal, copper plated kettle, popper catapetal, copper plated kettle. And once more, we'll go faster. Popper catapetal, copper plated kettle, that's all speed. 1, 2. Popper catapetal, copper plated kettle, popper catapetal, copper plated kettle, popper catapetal, copper plated kettle, popper catapetal, copper plated kettle. Good, excellent. And now let's do some. Okay, well on this note, we'll do 11 benevolent elephants. So it's 11 benevolent elephants, 11 benevolent elephants. So just do that a couple of times. Say it a couple of times. Get your tongue around it. 11 benevolent elephants. 11 benevolent elephants. 11 benevolent elephants. 11 benevolent elephants. We'll start 11. 11 benevolent elephants, 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 11 benevolent elephants. Right, and once more, 11 and 11 benevolent elephants, 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 11 benevolent elephants. Right, so that should have warmed your lips up a little bit and your tongue likewise, and maybe sort of got the larynx going up and down a little bit. Let's do like a few arpeggios before we start learning the song, start looking at the song. So just to do that tune. Start a bit lower. We'll do to the words of Facebook doesn't work. Face and Facebook doesn't work. Face. Facebook doesn't work. Face. Facebook doesn't work. One more face. Facebook doesn't work. Let's do it too. We're meeting online. If you're finding it high, you're welcome to go down the octave or pick a pitch that you're comfortable with, because we can't hear each other, so you can do it at whichever pitch you're at. This is slightly higher than the highest note we're going to be, so you don't need to go any higher than this in the actual piece, Lautrie. But we'll do this too. We're meeting online. We'll do three more. We're meeting online. We're meeting online. One more and we're meeting online. Brilliant, excellent. So hopefully we feel sort of a bit more warmed up. Our tongue, I'm still sort of slightly smarting from the tongue. I haven't done that for a while, and it shows. Um, and sort of feeling a bit looser in our sort of necks area and our sort of throat area. You want to try and be as wide as possible here. So you want to try and get as much space in this sort of area, so there's as much resonance, as much area for resonating, um, kind of in sort of the back of your neck, in that sort of cavity there. You don't want to be constricting yourselves there, and that's something that's very easy to do in your sort of everyday talking. You tend to constrict slightly, so you just want to try and make it as open as possible. Right. So Loutrier, there are some links on the website to the words and to the tune. So I sort of wrote, I did a news score version of the tune, and I did sort of the words plus translation. Hopefully, everyone has got that. If you don't, then if you go onto the sort of online festival page on the website, if you scroll down to 2 o'clock on Sunday, underneath the blurb about what we're doing is a link to a PDF of both the words and the tunes. So go there if you want. Thank you very much, Paul. That's extremely helpful. But otherwise, hopefully you have printed them out. Um, we will start just by learning the tune. Now, I imagine uh, most of you, like this, I think this is quite a well-known tune, so lots of you will probably know the tune already. Lots of you might have looked at this beforehand. If so, thanks. Um, so please, if you have or if you do, then please just kind of forgive just going through it and learning it. But it's just so everybody is up to speed. What we'll do is we'll just go through it phrase by phrase and sing it. I'll sing it a couple of times and get you to repeat it a couple of times. I'll go through the pronunciation very quickly of the first verse. Most of it is kind of as you would expect. Most of it is self-explanatory, but there's a couple of bits which, there's a bit of ambivalence or ambiguity about it. So the first syllable is lao, as in loud. So we start with lao. The next sort of tricky bit, I think, is in the second line, or the second line of music, that is, where we've got the word joy, which is as English, the joy. The next bit is on the third line of music, where we've got the second word, fi, which is with a sort of lia. So we have a filia rather than fila, filia. I'm just going to sort of make a disclaimer here that all of these pronunciations come from Jill. So if you've got a problem with it or sort of think that I'm wrong, take it up with her. But for the purposes of today, we'll just sort of stick to this. You might know better, many of you probably do know better, but just for today, let's sort of stick to this. Sorry to throw you under the bus there, Jill. The next one is is on the fourth line, camisa. So we'll do a proper Z, a little English Z. Vest e camisa. Oh yeah, the final line, the third word there, causas. So cow, as in the thing that goes moo, causas. Jules just very helpfully said there is a guide to early Occitan pronunciation in the booklet and Chantar, which is probably very reasonably priced. I think that's everything that is sort of non-standard that you might kind of be unsure about. Everything else is kind of, if you imagine, oh, maybe trobe in the first line, trobe, as in this type of tree, trobe. If there are any other problems, then put it in the chat and I'll sort of go through it. But that's what I think all the tricky bits. So let's start. Let's start. That should be kind of quite easy. Da, 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 it's going to be the top note. So it's just a semitone down from what's written, but maybe that'll be kind of more comfortable for everybody's range. Low. So I'll sing the first couple of lines. So the first line up until halfway through bar 5. Um, just join in when you want to. I'll sing it 3 or 4 times. Um, and yeah, here goes. So it goes. Lautre jost'una sebissa, trobei pastora mestissa. Okay, do it again. Lautre jost'una sebissa, trobei pastora mestissa. Again, once more, and go. Lautre jost'una sebissa, trobei pastora mestissa. Cool. I'll just do it once more, just to make sure we've all got it. It's very catchy. You'll find that you'll be singing this the rest of the day. My wife last night was with me in the room when I was singing, and she was very annoyed that she had this in her head all evening. So, Lautre jost'una sebissa, trobei pastora mestissa. Great, and the good news is, the next phrase is exactly the same, because if something's good, why not repeat it? So let's do the next phrase, de joy, and then we'll put the two together. We'll do de joy a couple of times, and then we'll put the first two phrases together. So de joy, 1, 2. De joy et de massissa, sicum filia de villana. Great, once more. 1, 2. De joy et de massissa, sicum filia de villana. Brilliant. We'll do it going first two phrases in together. So it starts from la 1, 2. Lautre jost'una sebissa, trobei pastora mestissa, de joie de massissa, sicum filia de villana. Great, excellent. Hopefully, that is all in your heads. We will crack on with the next phrase. We'll do all the way from where we just got to the end of bar 13. So it's kind of the same small phrase repeated. So it goes 1, 2. Cap egonel e pelissa, vest e camisa treslissa. Great. One, yes, cap 1, 2. Cap egonel e pelissa, vest e camisa treslissa. Cool. Talitha, to respond to your question, in the words, so there's the music, and on the website there's the words. And on the words, I've sort of done it on 2 separate columns, and the right-hand column should have the translation on it. It should look like that. Great, let's do that bit again. So cap, sorry, I'll just put the music over my webcam. Cap, 1, 2. Cap egonel e pelissa, vest e camisa treslissa. Cool. I think we're ready to do all the way. Actually, no, let's just do the last line now. Let's do the last line now, and then we can do the whole way through. So starting here, sort, 1, 2. Sot las e causas de la na. Great, once more, sot, 2. Sot las e causas de la na. That's a slightly trickier one. It's slightly more angular, not quite so intuitive, I think. So let's just do that maybe 2 more times, and then we'll just do the whole thing. So sot las e causas de la na. once more. And sot las e causas de la na. Brilliant. Let's do the whole of the first verse. We'll do this. Let's do it twice. Let's just do it twice immediately after, and there'll be sort of 2 clicks in between the end of the verse and the start of the next one before we come in. So la 1, 2. Lautre jost'una sebissa, trobe pastora mestissa, de joy et de massissa, sicum filia de villana, cap egonel e pelissa, vest e camisa tres lisa, sot las e causas de la na. 1, 2. Lautre jost'una sebissa, trobe pastora mestissa, de joy et de massissa, sicum filia de villana, cap egonel e pelissa, vest e camisa tres lisa, sot las e causas de la na. I mean, I can't hear you, but I presume you're all excellent. Is everybody happy with the tune? If your video's on, then can you just give me a thumbs up if that's the case? Excellent. If you would like another quick go through of it, then just sort of a thumbs down or type something in the chat. Do the last line again. Of course, I'm going to do the last line again. So, we'll do this sort of maybe 3 times. I'll sing it once and then sort of come in with me as I sort of repeat it a couple of times. So, sort 1, 2. Sot las e causas de la na. And again, 2. Sot las e causas de la na. Once more. Sot las e causas de la na. Let's do it from halfway through, so from cap going into that last line, because I know that it's not the most intuitive. So let's just do that twice, from cap egonal right to the end. We'll do that twice, and hopefully you will have a slightly better idea of the last line. So we'll go cap, 1, 2. Cap egonelle pelissa, vest e camisa tres lisa, sot las e causas de la na. 1, 2. Cap egonelle pelissa, vest e camisa tres lisa, sot las e causas de la na. Cool. So hopefully that's a bit more in your heads, the last line. So we have learned the tune. Now what we're going to look at is the words, the meaning, and how to get that across. How sort of to perform something in a long dead language so that it makes some form of sense or people can sort of follow the story. And it's quite important, especially for a song like this, because this is a story. This whole song is a story. And whilst it's a beautiful tune, I think it is important to get the story across when you're performing it, because it just ends up being the same tune over and over again, with kind of sounds that don't really mean anything. And if you're not sort of trying to do something different, there's a danger that it'll just get a bit staged, just to get a bit repetitive, and the listeners will sort of switch off, even if they're just doing that subconsciously. It's a massive problem because nobody speaks this language anymore. So there's a sort of few suggestions on how to overcome that problem, how to sort of get the sense across. Most importantly, make sure you get a translation of what you're doing. Make sure you know the meaning of the words of any song that you're singing. Even if it is just a sense, even if you've just got a sense of it, and you're not like translating every single word, just as long as you've got a sense of what's going on, you can normally find translations online. Um, Even if just get the sense and try and get a sense if different verses have got different overarching senses. Then sort of maybe at the start of each verse, just write down an adjective that describes the sense of that verse. So you could have loving, you could have disappointed, you could have predatory, you could have dismissive, those sort of things. So that will just give you an idea in your head of what the emotion of this verse should be, and you can sort of try and get some of that across in the way that you're singing. Each verse also normally will have a crucial word or 3 or 4 crucial words that really are the essence of that verse. And it's important that those words come out or those words stick out. And there's a couple of ways of doing that. One really easy way is to do a little glottal or to a little stop just before, a tiny, tiny imperceptible stop just before that word. But it means that the listener will subconsciously concentrate on that word slightly more because there's been just a slight tweak or slight change in the sort of general mellifluous sort of bit of the tune. So, for example, I think in the first verse, in the first important word is the word pastora, because that means a shepherdess, and that tells us what this story is about. So I would, in that case, go Lautre jost'una sebissa trobe pastora mestiza. A tiny stop just before the word pastora, but it means that the listener will kind of sort of focus in on that word. So that's one way of doing it. Another way is sort of a change of vocal tone, a change of vocal colour on the words that you want to emphasise. And in particular, if it's a word that is emotive, then you can try and bring some of that emotion into your voice, into the way you're singing, even into your face. So there's not particularly good example of that in the first verse. So I think the best example would be to use the second verse and the word dol, which means unhappy. So you want to try and get a little bit of that across. Change your vocal tone, maybe change your facial expression, change the way you're standing just to get that across. So, for example, I would sing from sort of halfway through the first phrase. Toza fimeures fatisa dol ai Carlo. So just a slight change of vocal colour, a slight emphasising of it. You can even take your time over the words, which is a lot easier if you're doing it as a solo. It's a bit harder if you're doing it. So when I sing this with Jim and Paul, it's a bit harder because you've got 3 of you to kind of work at it. But if you're sort of with people that you sing with or play with often, normally if you steal a bit of time there, people listen to you. Thank you, yeah, you do. So that's sort of an example of what I mean by sort of changing the vocal colour to emphasise a word. Yeah, and other ideas is like just a sort of meaningful look in your eyes or sort of meaningful gesture or something. We'll come to there's one very good gesture later on which we will come to. But what I think we should do now is I think we should do a little bit of work by ourselves, just a little bit of looking at the words. And I would like you, please, to look on your sort of word sort of sheet. So on this, so rather than looking at the music, look at the sort of the words. And we're going to concentrate on verse 3, starting toza fim eu. We'll go through a bit of pronunciation for this in a sec. But can you pick, please, I'll give you a minute, can you pick 3 words that you think sum up the essence of that verse? Or pick the words in the original language, so in the Occitan. Pardon me, yeah, pick 3 words that you think are the most important in that verse. It doesn't have to necessarily be an adjective. It doesn't have to be anything. It's just like the 3 words that you think really sum up that verse. And once, yeah, in about a minute, I'll ask for your suggestions on the chat. Yes, yeah, good suggestions so far. Can you do them in the original Occitan? Do them in the original language. Um, if you've got autocorrect on, this is going to be a problem. Cool, yeah. So feel free to sort of put your suggestions in the chat. I know what my 3 words would be, but everyone's got different interpretations of a song. Cool, yeah. So we've got some good suggestions. They seem fairly uniform. I think you've all kind of picked up what obviously you're intelligent people, of course, you're going to pick up what the important words are. My personal 3 words would be pia, compañía, and soldana. So you're talking about sort of sweet, company, and alone. Those 3 words. Some of you also mentioned toza and vilana. I agree with that as well. We will come back to especially the word vilana in a sec. Um, but what I'd like to do now is to see if we can get across the sense of that verse. So we've got the added complication of trying to fit it to the tune, but hopefully the tune should be in your head a bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to sing through verse 1 again, so we can remind ourselves of the tune, and then I'm going to sing through verse 3 to sort of give you an example of how it fits in with the tune, and then we're going to sing through verse 3 together, trying in our own ways to get the words pia, compañía, and soldana sort of emphasized in any way you want, either by having a little glottal before it, either by changing your vocal timbre, or by having a little gesture, or by another way which I haven't mentioned, which you feel would get the words, the sense across. So let's start on loud 3A, sing the first verse, and then I'll sing the 3rd verse. If you want to join in, please do. But I'll give you an example of how it fits, and then we'll sing it again, trying to get some sense across. So loud, 1, 2. Lautre jost'una sebissa, trobe pastora mestissa, de joy e de sanessissa, sicum filia de villana, hap egonel e pelissa, vest e camisa treslissa. Sot las e causas de la na. Toza meu causa pia, destos me sui de la via, per fara vos compagnia, car aitas toza villana nodeu, ses pare il paria, pastorga tanta bestia, e night altera soldana. Great. So I'm aware that it is quite tricky to fit words to a tune when you haven't necessarily got them underneath, and maybe it's a tune that you don't know that well yourself. That's also kind of just the lot of a singer of medieval music when there's a conservative estimate, an average of 1,000,001 verses per song. Um, and to be honest, you just have to work on it beforehand just to make sure you've got be able to pick it, fix it to the tune. Someone's asked about the words. Um, so again, Z's like an English Z, toza, cow, za. So cow like cow, za. Uh, the first line there, fin eu, but eu is one syllable. So toza, fin meu. Not the easiest thing to do. A bit of a mouthful. The second line, you've got mesui. So like you're saying sweet without the final T. Mesui. The third line, compagnia. So it's a slightly more open. That's not compagnia, compagnia. That's one that I always mess up on. So compagnia. And the fourth line, the QU is hard. So you've got car itals. I, like height, itals. Fifth line, this is actually quite a complicated verse in terms of words, isn't it? Sorry about that. I thought it was a good one in terms of meaning, but maybe not in terms of pronunciation. So the fifth line is no deu, deu, sort of Catalan. It almost it sort of sounds deu, no deu, pareil. So it's a bit like the French word pareil, pareil. Ital in the last line, ital. So yeah, no deus es parei paria, pastorga tanta bestia en ital terra soldana. Does anybody want any of that repeating, any of those pronunciations? Give you a few secs. Yes, I could speak the line straight through. Yes, so it's toza fin eu causa pia destos me sui de la via per far a vos compagnia car aetals tosa vilana. No deu ses parei paria, pastorga tanta bestia, en aetal terra soldana. Or something like that. I mean, none of us are alive, we don't know, but this is our best guess. So, Toza, let's just sing this verse through a couple of times and see if you can come up, sort of challenge for you. See if you can come up with two different ways of emphasizing one of those words. So pick one of those words. Pick pia, pick compagnia, pick soldana, and we'll sing it through twice. Pick one of those words, emphasize it one way first time through, emphasize it another way second time through, just to sort of give yourselves, yeah, ideas of how to, yeah, how to sort of emphasize these specific crucial words. So start toza. So a challenge for me as well. To, so 1, 2. Toza fimeu causa pia destos me sui de la via per fara vos compagnia car aetas toza vilana no deus es parei paria pastor tanta bestia en aetal terra soldana. Once more. Cosa fin eu causa pia, destos me suite la via, per fara vos compagnia, car aetas tosa villana, no Deus es pare paria, pastor da tanta bestia, e night altera soldana. Excellent, lovely. Likewise, every time you sing, I'm going to presume it was absolutely perfect. Um, I can also see, I love seeing your faces getting into it. Um, Good. So that's kind of a little sort of pointer on picking out individual words and sort of how to emphasize them. Other ways in which to, we're going to use the same verse as an example. Other ways in which you can sort of look through a song and try and work out how you can make it more accessible. Um, Try and see if there's any repetition throughout the verses. And this is something that you find a lot in troubadour songs, in particular like the Rotoranges or Rotoranges, however they're pronounced, Rotorengi, um, that are sort of very popular in the late 12th, early 13th century. They often, I think the very definition of one of those is that there is a chorus line somewhere, either in the middle or the end. And that is a really good way, a really good place in which you can get the sense of a verse. So I said earlier, like if you think that there's an emotion that you can sort of give a verse. So say, for example, you want to be angry in the verse, in this particular verse. On a chorus, if there is a chorus line, try and sing that line in an angry fashion. Um, this doesn't apply that well to this piece, but it applies to other, like something like Chanter Mestouet, for example, which we did last year, which I think is by Gontier de Song. Um, that's an example of one of those. And in here, we do have some repetitions. They're slightly different ones, but you'll see that every single verse has the word vilana. The end of the fourth line of every single verse is the word vilana, which means woman, um, or peasant girl, basically, a lowly woman. Um, and that is a way of kind of almost grounding each verse, the word vilana. I'm not necessarily suggesting you want to come up with 14 different ways of singing the word vilana, but it's a way of just kind of emphasizing it, and that's a way of sort of making sure that you sort of keep, everyone knows where we are in the verse. Si cum filia de villana, you might want to do this straight. Seigneur, som dis la villana, you want to give it a bit more v. You might want to go tas toza villana, give it a bit of a break beforehand, just to sort of emphasize the fact that it happens every single verse, because then the listener, again, subconsciously will be expecting it, listening out for it. It will make them feel, without knowing it, slightly more comfortable. So that word comes through all the time. But also, if you look at verse 2, verse 4, verse 6, verse 8, verse 10, I think that's it, you'll see that the villana comes in the phrase som dis la villana, which is narration. It's the knight, the narrator of the piece, basically saying, oh, and this is what the peasant girl said. So as she said. And this is a way, because of the narration element of it, this is a way that you can almost sort of slightly amusingly, slightly comedically, sort of step out of the story. So you're sort of explaining exactly what she said, and they can go, oh, and this is, yeah, as she said. This wasn't me, this was her. Likewise, in the verse that we've just done, we've got on the first line, we've got toza fin eu. So it's like, girl, I said. So you're just sort of letting people know it's this, part of the narrative thing. You just say, oh, it was me that was speaking, by the way. So this is just another way of, when you look through, especially storytelling songs like this, a way in which you can just adjust the timbre, just adjust the way in which you're telling it. by stepping out and just letting people know that this is narration. So you go sort of Toza dim eo kauzapia. You don't necessarily have to physically step back like I just did there. You can just go Toza dim eo, just a little cock of the head or something like that, or just a raise of the eyebrows, or just a little kind of Toza dim eo. But yeah, it's just another way in which you're sort of looking through the verses and thinking, how can these words, which mean nothing, how can how can they help me tell the story? How can they help me keep people's interest? So let's do verse 3 again. Let's try, as we're doing verse 3, try and get that sort of element of narration by sort of giving Fin Eo a bit of status, a bit of sort of space, and as well as picking one or two words that you particularly want to emphasize, try and give the word vilana a bit of emphasis as well. Just give it a bit of status. So start on Toza. We'll do this twice. Give you a chance again. So Toza. And yeah, we'll just have like 2 beats in between. So to, 1, 2. Toza dim eu causa pia destos mesui de la via per fa vos compagnia car aetaus tosa villana no deus es pare paria pastor gatanda bestia night altera soldana. Tosa fin eu causa pia destos mesui de la via per fa vos compagnia aetaus tosa villana no deus es pare paria pastor gatanda bestia night altera soldana. Brilliant. Excellent. Good. So we have 5 minutes left. And what I'd like to do is I'd just like to concentrate on one more verse, just look at one more verse and just look at another way in which we can get the sense across. And that is, there it is, sorry, that is verse 6. And the way in which I'm going to sort of suggest we can do this, and this is the case in actually lots of verses, but it's to do with enjambement, which is to say going through from one line to the other. So the listener will be listening to the song, they'll be hearing verse, break, verse, sorry, line, breath, line, breath, line, breath, and they'll be used to hearing that. So in the same way that, you know, if you're doing a Shakespeare sort of speech, as soon as you sort of mess up the meter slightly, or if we go through at the end of a line, people listen to it and they give that more status in their heads. We can do that when we're singing. And so in verse 6, the one I'm particularly thinking about is going through between lines 2 and line 3. So it's from retrera, that should be AI rather than IA, from retrera to alvezoig. So you go vereverti, so verevertire, alvezoig. So sort of the senses I can trace all the way back to the sickle and the plough. So, you know, you might not necessarily have enough breath to do 2 lines in one. You've only got 4 lines of verse 6. Let's just concentrate then on the first 4 lines of verse 6, because that's where it comes. Because we've nearly finished anyway. So what I'd like you to do is go through between line 2 and line 3, so between retrera and alvezoig, and try and give I som dis la villana at the end of line 4. Try and give that a bit of status. Try and do what we were talking earlier about the narration. Try and give that a bit of, oh, as the girl said. So don. I'll sing it through once and then join in as you wish. Even join in now if you wish. So don, 1, 2. Don tot monling et monere, revetire re alvesoig et allarere, segne somdis la villana. Cool. Let's do it once more. I'll try and get the words slightly more right. In terms of pronunciation, tot is the second line, like a little child. Ere at the end. They, second line, first word, they. Retrere, or basically the same vowel. Vezoig. La rere. So let's do don, just the first 4 lines. Don, 1, 2. Don tot monling et monere, veire vertire retrere alvesoig et allarere, segne somdis la villana. Great, and we'll do that once more, and then we will sing verse 1, verse 3, and verse 6.5, half of verse 6, and then it'll be time to finish. So let's do half of verse 6, and then sing those 2.5 verses, and then it'll be time to finish. So don, 1, 2. Don tot monling e monere, veire vertire retrere alvesoig et allarere, segner somdis la villana. Excellent, brilliant. Let's sing through those 2.5 verses. Allow. So allow 1, 2. Lautre jost'una sebissa, trobei pastora mestissa, de joy et desen massissa, sicum filia de villana, cap egonel e pelissa, vest e camisa treslissa, sot las e causas de lana. 1, 2. Tosa fim eu causa pia, destors me suide la via, per fara vos compagnia, car aetals tosa villana, no deu ses parei paria, pastor gatanda bestia, night altera soldana. 1, 2. Don tot monling e monere, veire vertire retrere alvesoig et allarere, segner somdis la villana. And that'll do. Great. Well, thanks very much for joining me. We've got like 2 minutes. If anyone's got something you'd like to ask, I think in these 2 minutes, maybe sort of put it in the chat. Otherwise, I'm sorry that we weren't in person, and it's a shame that we can't be in person. It's also a shame that we can't sing together, because I've done a couple of gigs where I've been singing with people, and it makes a massive difference. But yeah, I hope you enjoy the rest of the festival.